Back last year, myself and a lot of other people really used to enjoy using routers. Last year, I wouldn't be surprised if people spawned on my routers more than anyone else in the game that year. So look, I might be a bit biased here, but as someone who actually enjoys providing logistics, I can say it's really nice to use routers, especially when you're leading. However, because currently routers are tied to the distance from a routing spire, currently you have to build the construction base and the associated routing spire right next to the base that you actually want to capture. This usually has around a 5-minute setup time because you have to find the courtium, get to the place without dying, and then place the entire base without dying. You have to do that for that base specifically, and then if you capture that base, you then have to push forward the router base and take another 5 minutes to again get a new router ready. Ironically, by that time, that base may have even been captured. As you can imagine right now, routers aren't exactly the most rewarding thing. The best analogy I can give is it would be like having to drive a Sunderer for 5 minutes to a base. Instead of having the interesting visual input of a Sunderer and the dynamic differences that Sunderer driving usually has, instead currently making a new router base is rather monotonous as a task. It doesn't feel that rewarding to do, but it is something that a lot of people that really like logistics and want to help like to do. They like to use routers, but currently they're just so frustrating to do. Now look, there's many ways to nerf routers in a different way than they currently are. So instead of it being tied to distance, routers instead could be tied to only that platoon. Or routers could be given an increased spawn timer relative to other options. Likewise, routers could despawn after 30 uses or 50 uses. Routers could have a 5-minute global cooldown for each player, or you could only use each router once. Routers could be even more weak than they were prior, perhaps even taking only 1 hit to destroy. Routers could only last 2 minutes before disintegrating. Or there could be a higher courtium drain on keeping the courtium spire on that construction base. Or each spawn from the router costs courtium. Routers could only be used once every 10 seconds. People could simply spawn from routers without shields. Routers could also be physically larger objects. Or to be honest, any of these nerfs could be done in combination instead of it just being tied to distance, because having it tied to distance is annoying. Now on the other hand, I do want to quickly mention that routers do somewhat circumnavigate vehicles being relevant to a degree, because instead of having to dodge enemy vehicles, you do have to dodge enemy aircraft. Perhaps when you're holding a router, you fly in an aircraft 50% slower or 20% slower. Likewise, routers do to a degree add an extra dimension to Planetside 2, where especially during prime time alerts, you would actually see oftentimes people go around try to kill router spires to stop people being able to use routers in order to help during alerts. And that extra dimension of the meta game has been taken out. Also, with ants no longer invisible, they are a lot more susceptible to dying to liberators or other land vehicles. When you spawn in a router as well, it's likely going to be with a lot of other squishy infantry, and so that can be farmed by air to ground players and likewise Hesh players. While I've always been fine with that, the people that I've played with have always been fine with that. Simply to say that it isn't like routers completely stop vehicles from being relevant, especially during travel of the router. Of course, by the way, if there is air to ground trying to farm the router players or Hesh players, then air to air is going to come along, other tanks are going to come along to try to take out the Hesh. So I still think that metagame is still there surrounding routers. It was some player emergent behavior, something that people really enjoyed to do, that I think has been unnecessarily and unfairly taken out of the game. I haven't really made any videos about this up until now because, truth be told, there were far bigger issues to deal with, but I think Planetside 2 is finally in a state where there isn't any massive issues that need to be addressed. It'd be wonderful to see this small issue of routers be addressed as well. It's something myself and many other people across many different outfits really enjoyed utilizing. It allowed you to overextend from a point hold, knowing that you had a backup to go to once the population evened out a bit. So it allowed people to kind of like, as the population gets to 50-50, you know, you go back to the point hold. But during that fast, say 30 seconds, fast minute and a half, people could overextend without thinking that they're not going to be able to respawn at all. I also don't think it massively detracts from other styles of logistics like Sunderers, especially if routers were given some kind of nerfs instead of the current ones that we have. Now look, this is a very quick video to get some feedback on these ideas, so leave your honest thoughts, feelings and opinions in the comment section for no other reason than I simply want to hear feedback. I want to hear, are these good ideas or am I wrong somewhere? Have a wonderful week. Until next time, I'm out. GG. Bye-bye.